Hello, Opophiles! Today we're going to be scraping a reed, but only doing the first day of scraping. So if you need a fast scrape, like just make the whole reed in one day, I've got a video for you. I'll link to it in the corner and in the description below. And if you need to know how to tie a blank, that's also down there. So we're going to start from a blank today, and we're going to get to the first stage of reed making, which is the first day scrape, functional reeds. Before we get into that though, don't forget to like and subscribe below if you haven't already. And even if you have already, can't hurt to do it again. Let's get into it. Alright, so we're going to first scrape on this blank, do the initial scrape, and the first things we're going to do is take the ears off. Then we're going to do what is called the slope. We need to generate the slope into the reeds that has access. Some people would say handicap access, but we need that general slope so the vibrations travel through the entire reed. Then we will clip it open and make the tip and call it a day. So that's the first day scrape. So first things first, let's go ahead and take off these ears. You'll notice that the shaping of the cane left some extra cane on here when we tie it. So first thing I do is I will actually take my shirt for protection, and I will use the knife against my shirt and cut these ears off right here. So I don't know if you can see right there, but I'm just really parallel with the piece of cane and taking the ears off. And that way I don't slice my thumb off, or thumb open, I guess. And you know, you can use a piece of cloth if you don't want to use your shirt, if you have a nice shirt. But when you're done, you should have your little fragments of cane, and the reed should be more or less straight. It looks like I missed a piece on the left side, so I'll go ahead and take that off right now. And you can do it without your shirt. I mean, you know, just takes a little bit of finesse. But sometimes if you're doing a lot of them, you can lose your patience and go too fast, and then you can slice your thumb open. Alright, so now the ears are off, and we're ready to do some scraping. So now, let's go ahead and put it back on the mandrel. I'm going to do a wholesale scrape. So notice that the cane has some opening here at the tip because the tip is too rigid. But fear not, it will leak if we do any tests to see if it's leaking, like just blowing through it, and air will escape through this little hole, or big old hole. But as we scrape, hopefully the piece of cane will lay down on itself and close that right up. So first we're going to do our wholesale scrape. I will try to leave bark at least 4 millimeters from the thread. So I'm going to start about here. You can use your ruler and measure and put a line with a pencil. I'm just going to do it by sight at this stage. But definitely when I'm starting out, I definitely use markings with the pencil. So I'm just going to wholesale. And notice that the scraping is leaving the cane in curls. So we're definitely getting like curly bits of cane, off the reed. So you want to make sure you're getting like that nice scrolling action, if you can tell there. And I'll maybe do, what was that, like 3 or 4? I'll do no more than 10 because I don't want to scrape too much at this stage. So maybe like 1, 2, even 6 might be enough. But just kind of use your feel. And I'm going off the darkness of the cane. So the bark is going to be a certain shade, and as I go deeper into the cane, it'll get darker, and then it'll start to get lighter again. If it gets too light, I know that I've gone too far, but you kind of just need to use your judgment. And I'm just getting those curls from where I start to scrape to the end of the reed. If you're able to scrape all the way to the end of the reed, you'll start to get a slope here. And notice that it's already starting to close up on the side. So it's thickest at the back, and it starts to slope down to the tip. And I'll just do the same thing on the other side. Yeah, good, okay. So there's this wholesale scraping. I don't want to lift the knife up at any point. The knife needs to be really sharp as well. And I'll probably cut to some B-roll here of me sharpening my knife. But if the knife is not sharp, you might chatter on the reed, and that's like when your knife goes up and down, and you'll leave like marks. Notice that the cane is still really smooth, even through all the scrapes. So we'll do a couple more here, just get those nice scrolls. Okay, now that we've done wholesale, I err on the side of conservatism with how much cane I'm taking off, but you can tell already that there's a spine forming and that there are channels forming that will become the windows. Once the bark is off the reed, I now need to exaggerate the slope as it gets toward the tip of the reed. So I'll continue to use similar scrapes, but this time I'm focusing my efforts to really get the edge, I shouldn't say the edge, the tip of the reed all the way thin. So I want the tip to be really the thinnest part of the reed so far. Now I'm getting a lot of this like buildup at the end here, and I think it's because the cane's kind of dry. So I just dipped it in the water just now, and hopefully we can get rid of that. Okay. And sometimes that extra cane can make it hard to see, so just be really careful if you get that buildup when you're trying to get rid of it. Okay, so now we've got rid of a lot of that buildup. We can do more. Let me just knock it out real fast. Great. Alright, so it's looking a lot better. It's also on this side. Okay, so most of the buildup's gone, and there's a lot more slope in the reed now. And I haven't put in the tip, like I haven't really found a good definition spot, but you can definitely see where the tip's going to be. There's definitely a slope into the end of the reed that gets more dramatic as we go. Now there's still a lot of bark back here, so I'm going to redo the channels before I clip it open, and that way I ensure that the whole reed vibrates. And again, this is like that wholesale scrape again, just really taking cane off to get the reed vibrating, and I need to get past the bark. So no bark left in the back here. Okay, so as we look at the profile of the reed, which is very important, we start to notice it forming kind of a curve, and we want that smoothness to be preserved as we continue to make this reed. So now we're going to clip off the tip of the reed. I'm going to clip off quite a bit, so I will use the ruler here. I'm going to measure at, so I'm not going to have a reed that's longer than 70, right? So I'm going to just give myself an eye of where that's going to be, and I've measured the wrapping process. The blank should be around 73. So I'm going to measure around where 71 is, maybe 72 if you're feeling like a little less risky. Again, like I would normally just do it by eye, but just so you can see how much I'm going to clip off, which should be quite a lot. So I'm going to clip off right there about. Okay. Alright, so quite a lot of reed gone, and then immediately with my thumb and first finger, I will turn the blades, what is that, clockwise, so that the blades slip. And that way the back blade is coming around the front blade on the left side. So if you can see here how they overlap, can you see that overlap? Okay, how they overlap. And the same thing is true on the other side, so it's symmetrical. Alright, notice that the ends of the tip are really tight now. That scraping of the slope made the reed seal really well. At this stage, you should be able to crow the reed. And it should get both octaves of the crow. Now it's very resistant at this stage because there's a lot of cane still on it. If it's not even crowing, you haven't taken enough cane off, so go ahead and fix that, take more cane off, and just know for the next reed you make, you want to take more cane off when you're scraping the initial scrape. Now if it crows, it should play in the oboe to where you can noodle. Alright, so it is very resistant, and it's not easy to play at all. The response is not anywhere near where we want it to be. But it does vibrate, and the whole reed vibrates. So that's the important thing when you clip it open. So at this stage, the goal is to make the reed vibrate more. So I'm going to just scrape off the edge of the tip, the very tip of the tip, and allow the reed to have better response and more access. Now I don't want to create any divots or clear delineations of where the tip is actually starting. I want it to be very smooth still and very kind of non-definitive. So I'm just going to scrape the edge of the tip, starting in no particular place, but making sure to smooth out any inconsistencies in the reed. So I want a really smooth, consistent scrape at this stage. really getting quite thin at the tip. The same thing in the back, and this has so much cane on it. I'm surprised it vibrates as well as it does. So we're going to take off 100 pounds of cane off of this tip. And if you rip off a corner at this stage, it's not the end of the world, because you're probably going to clip a little bit more off. But remember, we took a lot of cane off of that clip, so you don't have that much wiggle room, so just be careful. So if your knife is not sharp, this is going to be really difficult. But if your knife is sharp, you should be able to still get rolls, and I might have to resharpen my knife here in a second because these rolls are not very clean. But we will just keep going for now. Hopefully we don't rip anything off. And it can feel quite tragic at this stage when you make a mistake. But remember not to cry and just keep making the reed. Just focusing on the very edge there. Okay, so that should be enough. We're going to hear it in just a moment, and it'll sound really rattly. You don't have to zoom out. I'm just going to play it.
Say that again?
This is a sample of when I cleared out the tip. So you can tell, one, it's a lot easier to play, and the tone is already much richer and warmer. So now the reed is vibrating all the way through, but there's a ton of cane. It's quite heavy in the back of the reed, and that's really stopping it from vibrating where I need it to be. So I'm going to join the back of the reed with the rest of the reed here, and just try to get more vibration through the entire thing. Oh, and I got a divot. So this is a good opportunity to talk about what to do here. So I accidentally got a not sharp part of my knife and scraped right there. Luckily it's close to where the heart's going to be, but I'm going to scrape at different angles very lightly. And if I can, here, I'll scrape here so you can see. Can you focus here?
Mm-hmm.
If you are getting rolls, you're okay. But if at any point you start to chatter, stop and sharpen your knife. So right now I'm getting rolls. They are little, but they are rolls. And that's good. So we're able to smooth out that part of the reed, and there's no harm. Alright, I'm going to just scrape a little bit more off this side. And really, when in doubt, go for symmetry. That's the goal here. If you don't know where to scrape, just find somewhere where it looks like there's a little bit too much cane to be symmetrical. Because you can always take more cane off, but you can't put it back on. Alright, now we'll try it for the final time.
And go ahead.
Alright, so it's definitely sounding a lot more open and warm now. There is basically no tip in the reed yet. Now at this stage you could go and put in the tip to get more vibration. I like to let it dry out at this stage and put in the tip tomorrow. The last thing I'll check before I put it away is to make sure that the C is not too, to make sure that the crow is not too flat. So it's definitely not lower than a C. It's a little higher. If the crow is too low, you're running into problems. You probably took off too much cane. So just be aware of that as you're making reeds and practicing making reeds. So that was the initial scrape, the first day scrape. All we're doing is putting the general shape and curves into the reed, making sure that the tip is the thinnest part of the reed. Now, at this stage, you should be able to kind of play some melodies, maybe an etude or something. It's going to be a lot of work. But definitely, this is not a reed I would play in public. I need to let it dry out and finish the reed tomorrow, or at least progress on the reed tomorrow. Just to hear what it sounds like, I'm going to play it again. But before I do, don't forget to like the video below and subscribe so that YouTube sends the video out to more oboe players and reed makers who could really use it. I really appreciate your support for this channel. And when in doubt, always play beautifully.